So again, thank you so much for joining me today for this afternoon's Mass Impact General Training, or morning if you're on our West Coast. We're going to start with some general basics. If you've been through a training before, use the tool, you may already know this, but we're going to go over some general basics. I'm not going to cover logging in. If you need assistance with that, or somebody would like me to go through a specific tag or something like that, you can just type it in the questions box. I'll be happy to address that. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and skip ahead. I am recording the training. You can request a copy of that recording at the end. I'll show you how to do that as well. Okay, so we're just going to start on the Today page, which is our home screen of DemandTools. Your version information is up at the top left. Over here to the right is my user information and time left to renew. And down at the bottom of the screen in the gray bar, it tells me who I'm logged in as and where. So I'm in Hotshot Tools, which is my demo org. That's useful if you log into Sandbox or DevOrgs or things like that. We do provide access to those as attachments to your licenses for free, just so you guys know. Okay. All right, let's talk about your options menu. Over here to the left, you can get to the options menu. If you're in another module, if you go up to the top, you can get to edit options as well. Okay, here's your general settings. You'll have your file paths tab. This is where everything is stored by default. Okay, so if you were wondering where your log files are, that's where they are. Of course, you can update these file paths if you need to. Okay, just update that path, move the folder there so DemandTools knows where to look for it, and you'll be all set. Okay, all right, this self-help tile here is exactly what it sounds like. It'll give you some avenues for exploring options. We've got online help. I don't know if you guys have been out to our help system, but this is what it looks like. Right, so if you were working in DemandTools modules, MassImpact is a maintenance module, maybe you wanted to know more about formulas, you can click on that and it'll take you there. Or just MassImpact in its entirety. Okay, the knowledge base is great for searching for login errors. Okay, so maybe you want to type in login error and find solutions for that. There's some different login errors that you may encounter. Obviously, it wouldn't be in here if you had a login error, but I just wanted to show you how to search for an error. Okay. All right, back on the home page, live training. This is probably how you got to me today. I appreciate that. But we do, of course, offer a free public training in all of our modules in DemandTools, as well as DuPlocker, Job Builder, and People Import. We are going to be covering MassImpact today, which is our most easily schedulable module. It's a wonderful tool to do that. It really helps save you time as an admin. So Job Builder would be a great training to take in order to understand how you would schedule things on, a set basis, if you will. Okay. And tech support. This is where you're going to log a case for us. Please fill out the information in its entirety. Just gets you to the, gets your issue resolved more quickly. If you want a copy of today's recording, your case reason is going to be recorded webinar request. Product is going to be DemandTools. Module will be MassImpact. Let me do the proper one there. Thank you, MassImpact. And the description, please send me a copy of the recording. But if you were just logging a case, you would choose the proper case reason, right? General question, you received an error, whatever it might be. Okay, and you can see here we have the ability to attach a file, and you'll notice it'll tell you, some options for what you might want to send, right? Your error log or a screenshot or something like that. Okay, those are our basics for today. If anybody has any questions, like I said before, please just type them in the questions box. Everybody is in listen-only mode, okay? But that does not mean that you cannot communicate with me, so just type questions in. When I get to a nice stopping point, I'll review the questions, okay? And please, please, please ask questions. If I move through something too quickly or you need it explained in a different manner, please just let me know. All right, we're going to go ahead and head into MassImpact over here to the left. So MassImpact is a maintenance module, right? At a high level, maintenance modules are where you do data manipulation, right? MassImpact is a general data manipulation tool. We're going to be able to manipulate data in different ways, okay? And basically what we're doing here is we're querying data in Salesforce. We're pulling it into the module. We're telling it how to manipulate it or update it, if you will, and then we're sending it back to Salesforce, okay? All right, we are going to build a scenario today, and we're going to do a bunch of different things, but a scenario in MassImpact is 3 steps, okay? You can see at the bottom of the screen in the bottom left, we can load, save, or clear scenarios. Save would be what we're talking about at this moment. Maybe you have something that you want to run, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it might be, or something that you want to schedule. This is where you can save that scenario. Okay, so we're looking at screen 1, step 1 here. The very first thing we need to do is tell it which object we're going to be manipulating. So you can see at the top, Salesforce object to change. You'll notice that I can manipulate any object in my org, and obviously these are probably going to look a little different than yours. You have your standard objects, but then of course any custom objects that I have in my org will be here as well. Okay. For today's demonstration, we're going to focus on accounts, so I'm just going to choose the account object and say use object. You'll notice that when I say use object, that all the fields that are available on my account object are populated. Okay. If you're fairly new to DemandTools, and you might not know this, I'm just going to point this out. The fields that you're seeing are in alphabetical order by their API name, because we're talking to Salesforce through the API, right? So if you were looking for the account name, for instance, you don't see it up here as account name. The API name for the account name is actually name. Now, you'll notice that in parentheses, that's where it shows you the UI, or the Salesforce user interface name. Okay, so I'm just going to point that out. If you have any fields that you're specifically looking for and you can't find them in here, your best option is go to Salesforce, go into Setup, go into the object that you're looking at. In this case, it's accounts, right? Look at the fields on that and find the API name. Sometimes they're named vastly different things, okay? All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick fields that I want to see for review. Now, you need to pick 2 fields here. Okay, that's the minimum. Let's say I just picked 1 field. Like, let's say I just pulled the billing state field here, and I went down to the bottom right and said step 2. You'll notice that it'll say you need to select more fields. You need 2, by the way. We'll probably change that verbiage. It should say 2 so you know how many, but just for your reference, 2. All right, so I'm just going to pull some fields that I want to see for reference. If you're just manipulating a couple fields, you can pull them. We're going to go through various different things that we can do with the tool, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick a few of these. Okay, so I'm going to do state, billing country, contact count, favorite color, the account name, amount sum closed 1, shipping state, shipping country. Okay. And you'll notice as I pick those that they appear over here to the right. Yeah. And also over here to the right, we have an order button. And if I click on one of these, I obviously get these up or down arrows, or I can, renumber this 4 by typing 4 on my keyboard and clicking enter. Okay, and it moved. The easiest way to reorder these truly is to just do a left mouse click and drag up or down. So if I want the account name to be first, I just grab it and drag it up. And then maybe I want the shipping state to appear after the billing state, the shipping country after the billing country. I don't want this case count. Maybe I grabbed something improperly. I don't have to go over here and uncheck it. I can just highlight this from the left, click delete on my keyboard. Okay, or you can go over and uncheck. It's usually easier just to remove it. Okay, I think I'll put favorite color first. Okay, so what I'm doing by reordering this is, when we review results after we've told it how we want to manipulate data, right? In step 3, we'll see our results. Top to bottom is going to be left to right in a grid format. Okay, so if we were looking at an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, column A would be the name, column B would be billing state, so on and so forth. Okay? Okay, this is step 1. It's very simple. Choose the object, choose the fields. Are there any questions about this step here? All right, looks like we're good so far, so I'm going to go ahead and go to step 2. So at the bottom right of the screen, I'm going to go to step 2. Really quickly, I'll show these here. They're pretty self-explanatory, but check all would check all of your fields here and show them all, and clear would clear anything out here. So you can't just clear one at a time. One at a time would be how I showed you, where you highlight and delete on your keyboard. Okay, clear just clears out everything I have here. I'm making the assumption that you're using a PC when I say highlight and delete. If you are using a Mac, okay, it's function delete. And just so our users know, we do not have a Mac version of DemandTools. People who use Mac use Parallels or Boot Camp or some other Windows emulating software, but they still need to use function delete. They're going to get rid of something. Okay? All right, step 2, bottom right. All right, step 2 is where we condition, or we tell it what to query, and also where we tell it what to do. Okay? So as I'm looking at the top of the screen, if you've used other DemandTools modules, usually when you have conditions, or in some modules when you use conditions, you would have a radio button or something that said use all. Okay, you'll notice there isn't a use all here. We definitely have to set a query condition. Okay, so if you're working on something, and let's say you wanted to query all of your accounts, right? This is what you would do. You would choose a field that is always populated. And if we're looking at any object, every record has an ID, right? So the easiest way to query all of my accounts would be to say that the ID here is not equal to, which is your exclamation equal, blank. Okay, ID is not equal to blank, which means we just leave the value section blank and we add that condition. That's going to query all of my accounts. Okay, that'll work on any object. So if you're trying to query all of something, that's what you would do. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove that. We're going to build a condition. Okay, and we're simply going to build the condition that says, I only want to query Jennifer's accounts in the state of South Carolina or in the city of Mesa. Okay, so I'm going to show you an anding and oring. If you've been in the training before, you've already heard this. I'm going to explain it for others who haven't so that we understand anding and oring within DemandTools. Okay, so the first field that I'm going to select is going to be billing state. Billing state equals, we can see we have different operators, right? Starts with, ends with, contains, so on and so forth. Okay, the operators will change with the type of field that you're looking at. If it's a numeric field, you'll see greater than, less than, right? If it's a date, you'll see those same fields. If it's true, false, you will only see equal or not equal. Okay, so it'll change. So we're going to say billing state is South Carolina. Now, let's think about the case where my data isn't as standard as I'd like it to be. I know this never happens, but let's just pretend in my org, my states could be any of these options here, SC, South Carolina, or S period, C period, okay? Now, what I want you to remember about the value field here is that it is not case sensitive. So I can type this however I'd like. It's going to compare all cases to all cases, okay? The second thing you want to remember is that these values are ORed within the field, okay? And that makes sense. It's going to look for SC or South Carolina or S period, C period, okay? Otherwise, it would be looking for SC, South Carolina, S period, C period in that state field, okay? So they're ORed. We'll look for any of the values. And the third thing you want to remember is that the comma is the separator, okay? So DemandTools will look for everything after the comma in that field. So a lot of people type comma space, right? Comma space. I think that's pretty common. I know I do. So if I were to do that, I'm actually telling DemandTools to look for space South Carolina, space S period, C period. Okay, so be careful of that. That's generally not going to return many results. Most people don't accidentally put spaces in front of fields. Okay, I'm going to add this in properly just so we can see what it looks like. So over here to the right, I'm going to say add condition. It applies it in my current conditions under here. And you'll notice here that those commas turn to a pipe. All right. So as we're looking here, if you're a visual person, some people are more visual than others, but if you're a visual person and you see this all spread out, you will know that you have too many spaces in there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to that same condition, take out those spaces, and over here to the right, I'm going to say update condition, and then we'll notice it took it out. So visually, they should be crammed together, for lack of a better word, right? They're kind of smushed together like that. That visually is what you want to see. Okay. All right. So billing state equals South Carolina. Next one is billing city equals Mesa. And we're going to add that condition. All right. When I have more than one condition applied in the current condition section here, they're anded. Okay, so this is asking me to query only accounts in the state of South Carolina and in the city of Mesa. Okay, there's no Mesa, South Carolina. I need it to be ORed, right? Because I want only Jennifer's accounts in South Carolina or Jennifer's accounts in Mesa. Okay, so in order to get an OR, we're going to use this expert mode checkbox in the middle. I'm going to check this in a minute. I want you to pay attention to the right side of the screen here when I do it. So you notice when I clicked the expert mode box that this OR group popped up, okay? If they have the same OR group, right, these are both one, they're still anded, okay? So to get these to be ORed, I just need them in two different groups. So I'm going to click on one of the ones, type 2 on my keyboard, enter on my keyboard, and now you'll notice I have two groups. I have OR group 1 here and OR group 2 here. So now they're essentially ORed. Okay? The last thing I'm going to do is go down to the owner field because I want Jennifer's accounts in South Carolina or Jennifer's accounts in Mesa, correct? If you want to quickly get down to fields, right, instead of scrolling or rolling with this, you can actually type in the first three letters. You want to be quick about it. You don't want to be real slow, right? So if I type in OWN, it'll take me down to the first field with those three letters in a row. Okay? Can't type out the whole word, okay, but just the first three letters. So notice that I have owner ID. So if I know my user ID by heart, I can enter it here. Okay? I don't know it, so let's try something else. Owner alias. Here's a pick list of the aliases in my org. Or I can simply click on owner name, and now I have all of the users in my org here. Okay? Now you notice that you do have inactive users as well, right? It's always going to be the case. Sometimes people do queries on those types of things. So if this list is really cumbersome and long, what you can do is right-click in this value section, say filter list, and then maybe I just type in the first four of my last name and say OK, and now I have a more condensed list. Okay. If you want to get back to the full list, you would just right-click and say reset. Okay, we have a quick question. Just give me a second here. Jeff, when I do that, select 2 and hit enter, I see the OR group 2, but I no longer have the OR group 1. Did you scroll up? That current condition screen is fairly small. It could just be that you'll notice, Jeff, that I hovered over this line here so that I can move that, make that bigger. You should see two headers, group 1 and group 2, unless, of course, you just change it to number 2 and there's only one condition there. Okay, great. Yeah, I know that's a small thing. My pleasure, Jeff. Just so you guys know, and I didn't really explain it when I did it, but if you can hover over these lines here in the middle, right? You can see how my cursor changes, and I can make this bigger or smaller. Sometimes as you're working through things, you need to adjust those so that you can see these better. So I definitely adjusted that so we can see those sections. Okay. All right. So we understand this now. This isn't just for the owner field where that filter list option I was just talking about. It's also useful for any pick list or multi-select pick list. So any pick list you see, you can right-click and do that. Okay. All right. I'm going to go, oops, uncheck that. I'm going to go to my name here, check it, and say add condition. Okay. And you'll notice by default that it put it into OR group 1. Right? OR group 1 looks fantastic, right? Same OR group they're ANDed. So Jennifer's accounts and South Carolina. OR group 2 still just says accounts in the city of Mesa. So I need to get my owner information in that second group. So to do that, I simply just go over here to the right and add the condition a second time. Not update, but add. You'll notice it put it into OR group 1 by default. I'm going to click on one of the ones for that, one of the owners, and type 2 and enter. And now I have my two OR groups, right? OR group 1 here, OR group 2 here. Okay? In Salesforce, that'll look like left paren, 1 or 2 right paren, and 3. Are there questions about conditioning, the anding and oring, and how that works, and the fact that you do have to set a condition here in MassImpact always? No? Okay. I'm going to talk about a couple more fields here, and then we'll get into the meat of what MassImpact does. For date fields, let's say I select create a date as a condition. You'll notice that the value is the date and the time, right? That's according to Salesforce, date and time on the create a date field, right? Some other fields are like that as well. If you need to query a specific date, let's say I wanted to query May 10th, okay? I would need to do create a date is greater than or equal to May 10th at midnight and less than and equal to May 10th at 11:59 p.m. Okay? However, if it's something more specific like yesterday, today, tomorrow, last week, right? Something dynamic, you'll notice you do have your dynamic operators here. Okay, you also have your empty date, not empty date. Just like when we did ID is not equal to blank, you actually can't clear out this value section. It pulls up a calendar right here. So You can't actually make it blank. So if you wanted to query based on an empty date, you would use that empty date, not empty date operator. Okay. All right. So I am done talking about conditions. I am going to set a condition that's only going to query accounts in the billing state of South Carolina. Okay. All right. Feel free to ask questions. The bottom of the screen is where we actually tell it what we want to update, how we want to update. And you'll notice that we have several tabs. We have value, field, formula, object count, field sum. Okay? And these are the different ways that we can manipulate the data. We're going to review each of these. Okay? All right. So we are going to just start with this value tab. Okay? And we're going to talk about a very simple scenario here. Let's say I want my billing country to be USA, okay? And I'm only querying South Carolina, so that makes sense. I just want to hard code USA into the billing country field for all of my South Carolina accounts. Okay, so I'm simply going to go over here to the left where it says field to update. I'm going to choose the billing country field, okay, because that's what I'm updating. I'm going to choose the value tab, and I'm simply going to type in USA. Okay. And then over here to the right, I'm going to say add to set conditions. It appears on the bottom. That's how I know it's applying it. Okay. And it's that simple. So we're going to look at what this looks like on our next screen here. So bottom right, step 3, it's going to analyze my records and pull them for me. Okay. So what we're seeing on the screen are all of the South Carolina accounts. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you have an information box. See it here? Records found, 921. Records to change, 890. Okay. If you see the new column, which says new in it, right, new billing country, here's the original billing country over here. If it's in green, that means it's changing. If it's in yellow, that means it's not. You can also tell that over here to the left in the data changed header. These are yellow, and they also don't have checkboxes in the data change. And by the way, I can't check them. I'm attempting to right now. You can't change that. That's based on the condition I set in step 2, right, or the data update, if you will, where I hard-coded the value of USA. Okay. Let's look at the bottom of the screen so we can see some options with this tool. So in the grid control section here, okay, uncheck all would uncheck everything here, which doesn't mean the data changed. That doesn't change, but the use. Use means that when I click update records, it updates them. Okay, so if I do uncheck all, you'll notice that record is a change and the information went to 0. And then if I do check all again, it went back to the original 890. Okay, fit grid actually just fits the grid to the screen. I'll show you what it looks like right now. So if I do fit grid, just spreads it out. Sometimes that makes it easy, things easier to read, especially if you have a lot of fields. Okay, if I have a few fields, I generally don't use it, but if there are a lot, it'll give you a nice, easier view. Okay, you can export the grid data. Okay, so if I didn't want to manipulate any data, I just wanted to see what results there were, I can do that. Format in Excel or CSV. Okay, we're going to talk about the update control a little bit later. I do want to talk about show groups, and we'll dive into a little bit deeper, but I like show groups. It helps me see things in a more concentrated manner. So if I do show groups, and I'm going to click this in a minute, I want you to pay attention to the top of the screen here, right underneath where it says step 3. Okay, I'm going to click show groups. Okay, you'll notice this gray bar appeared. Drag a column header here to group by that column. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to grab that data changed header and drag it to the top. So I'm going to grab it, drop it. Okay, and now this says data changed false, and there's 31, which there should be, right, because only 890 are changing. And you notice that they're already USA, which is why they aren't changing. Okay, we can make this the sorting. We can subsort, which I'll show you a little more easily in a next pass that we do. But I can just close that whole group of false. And here's just all the ones that are changing to true. When you group things, it also makes it easier to check or uncheck. So if I right-click on this true header, I can say uncheck the whole group. Okay, or I can right-click and say check the group. Okay. All right, that's a nice, easy scenario. We're going to look at something on that value tab again. So we're going to go ahead and go back to step 2, bottom right. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to manipulate a field that I have in our org called favorite color. Okay, it's a custom field, but I want the favorite color field to be blank for all of my South Carolina accounts. Okay, so up here, field to update, I'm going to say that's favorite color. And in the value section, I'm going to leave it blank because I want it blank on these accounts that I'm querying. Okay, so I'm going to add that to my set conditions. On the bottom, I'm going to get rid of that billing country that we just did. If you process records in step 3 or you update your records, this all gets cleared out. So it just takes you back to the beginning, just so you know, and I'll show what that looks like in a minute. Okay, so we're going to do delete for billing country, and we're just going to leave favorite color. Favorite color equals blank. Step 3, review records. Okay, so if I look down at the bottom, it says it's changing 48 of them. So again, I'm just going to grab that data change header, drag it to the top. I'm going to close everything that's false. So here are my trues. This little subset, this is what they originally were and what it is now. Okay, I'm going to process a couple of these, but first I want to look at the record. Okay, so if I click view on this first record here, Rest Master Betting, if I click on view, it takes me out to Salesforce and that record in real time. That's an options. I'm going to show you what it looks like if you don't have the option I have checked. But for right now, we're just going to take a look at this, and we'll notice here's that favorite color field, and it says red. Okay, which it should. That's what it says here, right? If we go to the options menu, and again, it's edit at the top, options, you'll notice that I have used Salesforce to view objects, and it's checked. Okay, it is not checked by default. I like to go out to Salesforce to view the record. If you don't, and this is not checked, this is what it looks like when you view that record. Okay. Printable version, if you will. Okay. Just so you know, that's a preference, whatever you'd like. I'm going to keep mine checked. Okay. So I'm going to uncheck all of these records here, and I'm just going to check that first record red and process it to clear out that favorite color. Okay, so I'm going to, over here to the bottom right, I'm going to say update records. I'm going to get a fail safe that asks me if I'm sure I want to do that. I'm going to say yes. It processed it very quickly. You're going to get a gray pop-up. It says MassImpact is complete and there were 0 errors. We're going to look at error log files and restore files later. Okay, so I'm just going to say okay. And when I do that, you're going to notice it takes me back to step 1. Okay, so I'm quickly going to go to step 2. Same conditions are still here, right? Step 3, grab that data changed header to the top, and I should see that record here, which I do. It's still showing as red, so let's go to Salesforce and reload. And it still says red in Salesforce. Okay, so that would make me wonder what happened, right? I didn't get an error, it didn't seem to work, right? So I did this on purpose. I want you to pay attention to this. If you are trying to push in blank data, okay, DemandTools is going to require you to tell it that you mean to do that somewhere. Okay, so if you look at the bottom of the screen in the update control section, there is this checkbox for process blank. When I check that box, I'm saying I mean to push in blank data into Salesforce. Okay, so it doesn't, if you don't have that checked, it doesn't consider that an error, right? DemandTools doesn't want to overwrite populated data with unpopulated data, right? Unless you say, yes, I mean to do this. So if I click process blank, uncheck all the records, check this first record again, update, say yes, right? Get my screen, say okay, go back to that same record here, reload. Now we'll notice that the favorite color is gone. We'll also notice that the last modified date is by me at this time. Okay, so just something to remember about DemandTools, or especially MassImpact here, that if you're trying to push in unpopulated data or blank values or empty values, however you want to word that, you are going to have to remember in step 3 to click process blank. All right, everyone, that is our review of the value tab. We are going to move to the field tab. If there's any questions, now would be a good time. Great. Okay, nothing yet. So let's go ahead and move to the field tab. Okay. So let's think about a case where we might use this field tab here. Okay, let's say that for all of my for my accounts, maybe I don't have a lot of shipping data populated. Okay, and so I want to push in something that's in my billing fields. Okay, so and I should probably change my query, but I'm just for time constraints, I'm just going to leave it as billing state of South Carolina. But what you could do is just query where, you know, the shipping state field is blank or the shipping country field is blank, right, in order to populate that. So let's do this. We're going to say that the field to update is going to be the shipping country field, and then we're going to choose that field tab, and we're going to set that to the billing country field. Okay, so it's going to populate the shipping country field with whatever is in the billing country field. Okay, and we're going to add that to our set conditions. Get rid of favorite color. We're also at the same time going to do the shipping state field and set that equal to our billing state field. Okay, so field to update is here, set value to is here. Okay, so we're going to do both fields at the same time. Go to step 3. Okay, so we will notice here's our original billing state, right? And here's our original billing country, and here is our original shipping and shipping state and shipping country. And you can notice that these are pretty blank. You can drag these, by the way. So if I grab this shipping state column header, I can drag it down over here. See if I can't, yeah, set it next to shipping state. Okay, same thing for shipping country. Okay, so here's what it's going to be and what it was. Okay, now I didn't query based on blank data, right? I didn't set a condition, so it is changing US of A to USA because that's what the billing country is. Okay. All right. All right, let's go back to step 2 and we'll talk about another reason we might use this field tab. So if you have an instance where you need to touch records, right? Like, and by touch I mean you need that last modified date to be, you know, current. This would be a case where you want to kick off a trigger or a workflow, excuse me, or maybe you have an integration, right? An integration with another Salesforce instance or another tool of some sort, right? And the only time those things happen is when a record is touched. Essentially, if you were in Salesforce directly, you would do an edit save, right, without it changing any information, excuse me. And then it would say last modified date by Jennifer Ranella on 5/18 at 2:32 p.m., right? But imagine how long that would take to do that with all your records one by one manually, right? You can do that in DemandTools very efficiently here, okay? And the way that you would do it is you would set a required field equal to itself, okay? So if we're talking about accounts, a required field at the account level would be the account name, right? That's a required field. There will always be some information in that field, okay? So we're going to say that the field to update is the account name field. And then the field we're going to set it equal to is the same field, okay? We're going to set it equal to itself. All right. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and go to step 3. Now, we shouldn't see any changes here, right? So if we look in the information, we can see that it says 0 records to change. And that's what we would expect. The field is required. We're setting it equal to itself. There wouldn't be any changes. But if you want to kick off that workflow or trigger or integration or whatever it might be, okay, what you can do is in that update control where we last saw process blank is an update unchanged records. Okay, when I click this box, pay attention to the information section. You'll notice that it changed. Okay, essentially, it's not going to change any information because the name setting it equal to, right, it's still the same, but it is going to touch those records. So let's go ahead and do uncheck all. We'll look at the first record here. If we view that record in Salesforce directly, we can notice that the last modified date was on 5/11 at 2:16 p.m. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and process that one record. Okay, no errors. And then if we go back to Salesforce and reload that same record, we can see that the last modified date is now today's date and time, okay, because I essentially just touched the record. All right. We also have in our options menu this little option here. So again, edit options, use default lead case territory assignment rule. So if you have any of these rules in your org, using a touch like this, and of course if it was, lead, case, or territory, right, it would be a lead, case, or account object, right, that you would want to action upon, so that it would touch those and kick off those rules, okay? All right, something to think about. Okay. All right, how's everybody doing? Everybody's pretty quiet. That's the field tab. We are going to move on to the formula tab, if everybody's okay. So now's a really great time if you have any questions about anything that we've already covered before we move on to our formula tab. Okay, looks like we have a good question here. Hi, Stacy. What will be the point of choosing the update all? Like we just did, you mean, where you do update unchanged records? Right. Yeah. So the reason you would do that, Stacy, would be to touch them. If you had a workflow or a trigger or some sort of integration that would trigger that. So when you have those types of things implemented, right, exactly, Stacy, they don't kick off until somebody touches a record, and that's a really manual process. So this is like a quick way to touch all of them to kick those off. Yep, good question. Okay, all right. Okay, perfect. We're going to go ahead and move on to formula. Okay. Formulas are generally used to standardize things, right? These are, really great. There's a ton of other stuff you can do with them, though. A lot of formulas to do string replace, where you search for words and remove them or replace them or whatever it might be, all kinds of things that you can do with formulas. I'm just going to point out that we do ship our tool with standard formulas. So if I go to the default Documents DemandTools data directory, you'll notice that you all have a folder called MassImpact Scenarios. You can ignore everything, but anything that starts with DT23, you have that in this folder, okay? And these are all formulas, and the fields to pick, the conditions to set, how the formula looks, these are all set up for you, okay? And of course, we're going to go over some formulas today, but I just wanted to point this out so you'll know that if if you're new to formulas, or some people are overwhelmed by them because they seem complex. Though, they can be, don't get me wrong, but they can also be somewhat simple. You can just load a scenario here and just see kind of the thought process behind what you might query and how the formula looks and things like that. So these are in here. And I suggest if you're very new to formulas or just getting started in MassImpact, go ahead and load a couple of these and see what they look like. I think it'll make you feel more at ease with formulas and more confident about your abilities in the tool, okay? All right, so we are going to start with a very simple formula where all we're going to do is proper case the account name, okay? So the field to update is going to be account name. We're going to leave that the same, and then we're going to go to the formula tab, okay? We're going to say insert function. Here's all of our available formulas, okay? We have an extensive document on formulas that you can see, but you'll notice they kind of have the country, the country formulas, right? L cases, lowercase, North America phone fix, okay? Proper casing things, which we're going to do now. We've also got states, okay? And these different things in here, but there's a description of each formula, an example of each if you go to the online help documentation, okay? Here's every single one of them, right? These are just highlights, like if I wanted to know what is/null was, this is what it is, and here's an example of it. Okay, just so you know. All right, we're going to use the proper case formula because we're just going to proper case the account name. So I'm going to go up here and say proper case name, use function. It's going to populate that in the formula field. Anything you see in parentheses in a formula is where you need to tell it what to do. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight this string value here, and I'm going to insert a field, and this is just saying, what am I proper casing? And it's the same thing, right? It's the account name. So I'm going to grab the account name field, say use field, puts it in there, and I'm going to update that condition because we manipulated that one last time. And we'll see that when it's applied, name, proper case the name, step 3. I'm going to data changed again so we can just see. Okay, so we'll notice that these are the ones that are changing. Now, you'll also see, sorry, I just sorted that. Just in case you didn't know, I just A to Z just by clicking on the header there. Okay, so let's look at this. You see that the original name here, these are all caps, right? And it's decreasing that for me, if you will, or putting that in a proper case format. You see this first one? You notice how the new name kept the AKA in all caps? Okay, I'm going to point this out. We have what's called a proper case override file. If there are specific things that should stay proper cased, we're going to want to put that in the file so we don't have to worry about it anymore, right? So anytime we run a proper case formula, it's going to ignore AKA and keep it all in caps. Okay, so again, if we go to Documents, Demand Tools Data, you'll see this Replace List folder, Replace List. Double click on that. And here is a text file called Proper Case Overrides. I'm going to open this up. We do ship this with our tool. I think I've just added a few of them. But you'll notice at the very bottom of this, I have AKA. Now, you notice how it also says this, right? So you can put in here exactly how you want things to look, but it's never going to, this means that it'll never overwrite AKA as capital A, lowercase ka. It'll always keep it in all caps if that's how it sees it initially. Okay, PhD should look like that, right? TV like this. So you can add these to this file. Now, anytime there's any kind of proper casing and in Power Grid, you can do that as well. It will reference this file. Okay, this just saves you time, right? You don't want it pushing it back to something it shouldn't be and then having to go rewrite it again. Okay, so spending a little time in your list here is helpful. Okay, that's a nice simple formula. Okay, we're going to go back to step 2. Oh, we have a quick question, so let me take a look here. That's a really good question, Clay. The reason it didn't work on this delete AKA is because this is one word. There are no spaces here. If it had been delete asterisk, 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 wow, that was a tongue twister, space AKA, it would have worked. But because it's all together, it did not. What needs to be in my proper case override file is, you know, delete in proper case 3 asterisks, capital A, capital K, capital A. Does that make sense? It's because it's showing as one word. Yeah. Good question, Clay. All right, we're going to go back to step 2. Okay, let's say we want to standardize our country field. Okay, so my billing country field, I want it spelled out. So I want United States, France, Canada, Singapore, Germany, so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to choose the billing country field. And the formula, insert function. For country, I've got 2-character, US, 3-character, USA. ISO number, if we use the ISO numbers for countries, or return long name, United States. So we're going to use the United States. Okay, and I'm going to use a function. Again, we've got anything in parentheses is where we need to tell it. So I'm going to highlight that, insert the field, it's that same billing country field, right? Use that field. Use fuzzy. This is a true or false. True, should I use fuzzy? False, should I use fuzzy? Okay, fuzzy is a phonetic engine. At a high level, it removes vowels. It analyzes consonants. Okay, it's really great for catching spelling errors. It doesn't always work as expected. Let's take a look here at a notepad. Let's say somebody typed the United States wrong as untied states. Fuzzy, get rid of the first one here, I'll confuse you. Fuzzy actually will look at this, okay, and it will take out any of these vowels. So U-N-T-D, S-T, if there's 2 of the same letter in a row, it ignores it, so it's going to ignore the second T and just be like this, okay? That's what it looks like here. If it's spelled properly, the key, U-N-T-D-S-T-S. It's the same, right? And you can ignore the caps there. It doesn't matter whether it's capital or not, but it basically is going to key them as being the same. So it's really great for catching the spelling errors, but sometimes there can be some outliers. So we're going to look at what those outliers may be. So for fuzzy to start, I'm going to say false. Okay, all lowercase there, by the way. I'm going to say false for fuzzy. Okay, so don't use the fuzzy option. We're going to add that to our set conditions. We're going to go ahead and take a look in step 3 what that looks like. Okay, for this one, I'm going to subgroup more distinctly. So I'm going to grab the data changed header to the top. I'm also going to grab the original billing country field and drag that to the top too. So you'll notice we've got two sections here. Okay. So here's the first false group. It's false because it can't standardize something that doesn't exist, right? The billing country field is empty. It can't standardize that. Okay. It's not changing anything with Canada. It's already spelled out. Same with France, Germany, Philippines, and Singapore. Okay. Now you'll notice that this group is United States, so it's staying the same. That's false as well. Okay. Here is United Stats without the E in the state, right? Now I said false for fuzzy, so it expects to see something it recognizes, and it doesn't recognize this, so it's not going to make any amendments to United Stats. It's not going to make any amendments to untyped states. US of A, nope. Okay, and now we're to our truth. And you'll notice that it's changing. The first one that we see here is the British Virgin Islands, and it's changing it to Virgin Islands British. This is Salesforce, right? This is what it should look like in Salesforce. CA to Canada, FR to France, SG to Singapore, US to United States, so on and so forth. Okay? All right, let's go back to step 2 and change the fuzzy to true. Okay, update our condition. Okay, we're going to do the same thing, data changed in original billing country. Okay, here's our nones for false, right? Here's Canada, France, Germany, Singapore, and originally United States. Okay, and again, British Virgin Islands, CA to Canada, these all look great. This Philippines one, if you can see this, I know it's a little bit tiny, but you'll notice that it's spelled improperly. There should be 2 P's in Philippines. You'll notice it corrected it. It worked because I used true on the fuzzy. It didn't work before, okay, because it didn't recognize it, okay? So Philippines spelled incorrectly is now being updated to the proper spelling of Philippines, okay? So fuzzy worked perfect there, right? Here's Singapore, here's the United States, USA, here's United Stats being changed, okay? Here's untyped states being updated, US to United States, okay? So at this point, we're thinking fuzzy is fantastic, right? Here would be a reason why you want to be careful. See this? US of A, it's changing it to the Virgin Islands. It also does it for US of A like this. Okay? So the reason I'm pointing out good and bad is because you do need to be a little careful with your fuzzy. That's something that you're going to want to review. My suggestion is if you run this on a schedule, right, that you would do a false on that fuzzy, right, for safety reasons. And then you might run, once a month or every couple months, how, depending on your org, maybe you run a true on that to see if there are any outliers, right? Somebody that accidentally, typed in untyped states, so on and so forth, okay, if you were changing it. But I just want to point out the pros and the cons at the same time of fuzzy, okay? All right. Feel free to ask questions. All right, let's go back to step 2. We're going to make this, we're going to do a little bit more complicated formula. Let's say that all of my countries in Salesforce should be spelled out, right? I want France and Germany, Canada, so on. But the United States should be US, okay? So there is a way that I can do this all in one pass, okay? We're going to do what's called the string replace formula, all right? So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go down to that same field. We're going to say insert function. String replace, by the way, is one of my favorite formulas. I think it's fantastic. But I'll let you make your own determinations on that. So I'm going to choose string replace here, use the function. I left my original country match here, and I'll show you why in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that formula, which is return long name, right? And we're going to keep the fuzzy as true just for now. And I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to paste it where it says string value. Okay. So it is going to run this country long, and then in find and replace, I'm going to tell it what to find and replace after it applies the formula. Okay, so we're always going to do a find replace in quotes. So I'm going to do quote find United States, because that's what my formula changed to, right? It changed it to the spelled out version. And I'm going to say replace with US. Okay, so run the formula first, United States should be U.S. So all countries should be spelled out except for the U.S. So we're going to update our set condition and see if that worked as expected. Okay. Sorry, it put me down at the bottom of the page here. I'm just trying to get to the top. There we go. Okay, so these are our falses. So let's ignore those for now. So British Virgin Islands, still British Virgin Islands, right? Canada, France, Philippines, Singapore. That looks fantastic. They're all spelled out. And now we start to see where the U.S. is getting changed, right? This U dot, or U period, S period is U.S. USA is now U.S., right? United States is now U.S., so it did it, right? So it spelled out everything, all the other countries, but the United States is U.S. So that's how you nest a formula, right? So you can kind of use that string replace formula. It's something to think about. It's probably more commonly used, applying something and then replacing it if you have, kind of those one-off situations. Okay. There are obviously many, many formulas to use, right? And they take a little bit of test and see and working through them. And again, knowing where you can locate the documentation for what they mean, how they work, what you might use them for. If there are questions on formulas, now would be a great time. Okay, sounds like everybody is good. Hopefully you're enjoying the tool so far. It's one of my favorite modules, just because you can get a lot done in a short amount of time. We are next going to move to these two tabs, object count and field sum. Okay, I don't know if anybody has, there are several apps that you can use in Salesforce that do something similar, but I'm going to point these two out. I think they're really great functions. And we're going to do them at the same time. Okay, and the reason we're going to do that is I'm just going to kind of give you a theory on this. So let's say that I just want to run an account report. Okay, I don't want to have to do some multi-join report or anything like that. I want to run an account report that will tell me everything about the account that I want to know, how many contacts are associated with it, right? So how many contacts are linked to my account, and what's the amount of closed won opportunities. Okay, and I just want to run the one report. Okay, so I'm going to use these two tabs to help me accomplish that. Okay, the first thing that I've done is I've created two custom fields in Salesforce, okay, on my account object. The first one is called contact count. The second one is called opportunity amount sum closed won. Okay, so those are custom fields that I've created on my account object. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with that first one, contact count. Okay, my custom field. Then I'm going to go to the object count tab, and you'll notice it's going to ask me, what am I counting, right? What object am I looking at? Okay, and you'll notice these are all of my related objects here, right? Yours will look different. Some will be the same, but it's going to ask me what I want to count. So I'm simply going to choose the contact table. Okay, I'm going to add that to our set conditions. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is choose my custom field called opportunity amount sum closed won. Okay, again, that's a custom field. It's on my account object. Okay, I created it in Salesforce. And then I'm going to go to the field sum tab. Okay, you see here the first thing it asks me is which child table. Okay, if I want to know what the sum closed won opportunity amount is, I'm going to look at the opportunity table, correct? Okay, so I'm going to look at the opportunity table. The next little field to sum section here is asking which field am I summing. So these are all the available fields to sum on my opportunity object. Yours may be different, okay, but these are all of the number fields, if you will, okay? And for me, it's just the amount field, okay? Maybe for you as well, maybe different, but I'm asking it to sum the amount field, okay? There is this section here called limit by where condition. We also saw it on the object count tab. I'll show you after we apply this one. I didn't need to use it because I'm on the previous one because I just wanted it to count contacts. I do have to do this on this specific field sum, and this is why. I'm going to say limit by where condition, then I'm going to say edit the where condition. Now what I'm looking at are fields on the opportunity object. The reason I need to use this is I only want the sum of the amount field on the closed won ops, right? I don't want it in every single thing, and every single opportunity, open or not, right? I just want to know what we did, what we closed on. So I'm going to go to the stage field, right? Stage name equals closed won. And again, these are the fields in my opportunity, right? So I'm saying you sum the amount field, but only when the stage name equals closed won, and add that condition. Okay. We'll notice it applied it because it's checked here, and then when I add that to set conditions, it appears on the bottom. If we look at this contact count one, I'm just going to highlight it so it pops up. You could limit by a where condition here as well if you needed to. If you have an is active or something like that, you know, something that matters on that specific count, you can do that as well. Okay, we're not going to use it on ours. Okay, let's go over here to the bottom right and go to step 3. It takes a little bit longer when it does these two things because it has to count and it has to sum. Okay, and these fields are sitting here, right? Contact count, opportunity amount. Let's yeah, we'll put them backwards. All right, so we can notice here is the new contact count, new opportunity amount, sum closed won. There, this is my demo org. I don't have a ton of stuff in here, but you'll notice that it's updating this info for me. Right? If there's nothing there, it's going to 0. But it's basically going to count this. Now, the one thing you want to remember about these two fields, okay, specifically, is that they're only current as of the last time I ran it. Okay, so it's really, really great, but these are things that you're probably going to want to schedule, right? And depending on the size of your order, how current you need them to be, whatever you might be counting or summing, right? That you can run it, you know, every day. You can run it 10 times a day. You can run it weekly, monthly, whatever you want to do, but it's only going to be current, right? So it's helpful to know when would have been the last time you ran it. So if I run an account report and pull in those fields, how accurate should they be? Okay. All right. Okay, let's talk about the bottom of the screen here and the last thing I want to look at, which is use bulk API. So if I choose use bulk API, you'll notice that I get this bulk update settings. You'll notice that the batch size is 5,000. So when you're using MassImpact, the default batch size is 100. That's in your options menu as well. See it up here at the top, update, insert, delete batch size, it's set to 100. You can set this number to 200. That's the highest though, okay? It can go as low as 1, as high as 200 here, okay? Using the bulk API, it sends it over in batches of 5,000. So obviously you need to have a good bit of records to be updating here. Okay, and then you can decide whether you want a success and error file or a combined one. Okay, if I wanted to save this scenario, simply click Save Scenario. It by default takes me to DemandTools Data MassImpact, but I can save it wherever I want, excuse me, as long as I remember where it's at, right? So let's just call this. Perfect. All right, I'm going to go ahead and process a few because I think we had, I didn't show you that what that restore file would look like. Okay, so I'm just going to check a couple of these, update the records. Okay, here's your log file. So hopefully you know this, but in case you don't, your log file runs for 24 hours. If you look at the top, this is May 18th. This is my log file. It runs all day long. It covers everything that you've done in DemandTools. So you'll notice that earlier today I was in PowerGrid. Okay, here's MassImpact. This is all of today's work. If I had done a lot, this file could be very lengthy. Just look at the date and time. That usually helps you find where you're at and you know which module you're in. It always starts with that. Okay, if there were any errors, they would be here. You see how it says 0, 0, 0, 0. If there were errors, they would show here. Okay, just a quick note, most of them are common sense. Okay, so don't be scared of an error. Take a look at it, read it. A lot of them, the majority of them, are just errors that are coming straight from Salesforce. Okay. And the second file is your restore file. Okay. Restore file is going to show you the information as it was before you touched it. Okay. Here are two fields, new contact count, new opportunity amount, sum closed won. So these two are what it is now. Let me make this smaller here. Okay. This is what they look like now in Salesforce. You would use a restore file in MassImpact to roll them back. So basically you would just say, okay, I'm going to roll them back to what they used to be. Original contact count, original opportunity amount, sum closed won. Okay. Your restore files are saved forever. You have to actually get rid of them. So if we go into Documents, Financials, Data Restore, here are all my restore files from every single module I've used. I think I cleared it a couple years ago. Yeah, 2015. Okay. So you'll notice MI, MassImpact, Power Grid is grid, RO is reassign ownership, contact dedupe, account dedupe, so on and so forth. Okay, just a note. Okay. All right, we wrapped that up right on time. So if you need to jump off of the meeting, please feel free. We covered everything for today. I'm going to hang around for a few minutes in case there are any questions. Please let me know if there's something you need me to go over again, maybe something I moved through too quickly for you, anything like that. But I really appreciate you joining me today. You can have the rest of your day back. I'm going to hang out for a few minutes, answer any questions that may still be pending. Okay, thanks so much for joining me today, guys. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the week. If anybody has questions, please feel free to ask. If you don't have questions, you can go ahead and jump off the call.